Welcome back to Geopolitical Ground Channel, where we bring you the latest global military updates. Today, we provide detailed expert analysis on the most intense battlefield developments across the globe. This broadcast delivers breaking news and strategic shocks that are currently rocking the front lines.
From sudden heavy firepower deployments to massive ground troop maneuvers reshaping the actual battlefield boundaries.
These rapid military movements could completely upend the fragile balance of power in the region. We will soon uncover what is truly unfolding behind the heavy smoke of war today.
Let us dive straight into the burning heart of this intense geopolitical conflict right now.
A massive power struggle is currently paralyzing the United Nations Security Council in New York. China and Russia have united to actively shield Iran from intense Western diplomatic pressure campaigns. This powerful alliance effectively vetoed a critical security resolution regarding the vital Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, a strategic ceasefire agreement is fundamentally reshaping the entire military landscape of the region.
Washington has applied overwhelming military pressure against Tehran to force a sudden strategic tactical retreat.
The United States military successfully targeted and destroyed several critical energy infrastructure facilities inside Iran. American forces also conducted precision strikes to severely disrupt the central command networks of Tehran. Modern warfare technology, like advanced drones and supersonic missiles, dominate this highly destructive regional battlefield. Iran deployed sophisticated attack drones to counter the overwhelming technological superiority of the United States. However, the relentless American bombardment heavily degraded the operational capacity of the Iranian military forces.
These devastating military strikes forced Tehran into making a highly unexpected and significant strategic concession. Under immense military threat, Iran was compelled to immediately reopen the vital Strait of Hormuz.
This crucial maritime chokepoint had previously been weaponized by Tehran to threaten global energy supplies.
Relinquishing control over this strategic waterway exposes a major vulnerability within the Iranian defense strategy.
Washington effectively utilized its heavy firepower to dismantle the most dangerous leverage held by Tehran.
The sudden reopening of the strait clearly indicates that the United States currently holds dominance.
Iranian advanced missile systems remained on high alert despite the implementation of the temporary ceasefire.
The battlefield boundaries between Washington and Tehran are constantly shifting under the threat of escalation.
Global military observers are closely watching the deployment of modern defense systems across the region. Both sides completely understand that a single miscalculation could trigger an all-out regional war.
The United States continues to fly heavy bomber aircraft near Iranian airspace to maintain pressure.
Tehran attempts to project military strength while desperately trying to protect its remaining strategic assets.
This high-stakes military standoff will ultimately determine the future power dynamics of the world. The diplomatic battleground has shifted towards the United Nations Security Council headquarters in New York. Gulf nations proposed a crucial resolution to heavily protect the vulnerable Strait of Hormuz waterway.
This vital shipping lane safely carries approximately 20% of the global oil supply daily.
The proposed security document successfully gathered 11 supportive votes from international diplomatic representatives present there. The initial draft strongly demanded that Iran immediately cease all regional hostile maritime threat activities. Diplomatic pressure eventually forced the authors to significantly soften the aggressive language of the resolution. They removed clauses authorizing military action and strictly focused on self-defense and international law. Despite these major concessions, the resolution was completely blocked by a powerful diplomatic veto wall. Both Beijing and Moscow used their permanent veto power to kill the maritime security proposal. This dramatic rejection loudly highlights the deepening fractures within the modern international political world order. The United States representative immediately condemned the controversial veto decision during the intense diplomatic session. The American ambassador sternly warned that the Strait of Hormuz cannot become a political weapon. Washington furiously criticized Beijing and Moscow for openly supporting the aggressive actions of the Iranians. The global community will clearly recognize those who actively disrupt the freedom of commercial navigation. Interrupting the global supply chain could spark a massive worldwide economic crisis across multiple continents. Meanwhile, Beijing and Moscow argued that the proposed resolution was fundamentally biased and extremely provocative. They deliberately accused Washington and its regional allies of creating unnecessary military tension around Iran. Russia directly benefits from prolonged global energy instability because it keeps crude oil prices high.
High energy revenues strongly support the military operations and geopolitical ambitions of the Russian government.
China maintains a deeply strategic and highly profitable economic partnership with the government in Tehran. Beijing naturally wants to carefully limit any international frameworks that might facilitate American military interventions. The veto represents much more than a simple diplomatic disagreement within the United Nations chamber. It signals the rapid formation of a formidable axis determined to counter United States influence.
Any prolonged disruption at the Strait of Hormuz will undoubtedly shatter global market economic stability.
Without a United Nations mandate, Washington faces incredibly difficult choices regarding global maritime security protection.
The United States might be forced to launch unilateral defensive actions to secure maritime commerce.
Alternatively, Washington could quickly assemble a coalition of willing nations outside the United Nations framework. The United Nations Security Council is sadly becoming a paralyzed theater of divided global power. International multilateral mechanisms are failing to resolve urgent crises due to endless strategic veto battles. The fundamental question is who will step up to guarantee absolute stability across international waters. A highly complex geopolitical financial picture is gradually emerging behind the dark curtains of diplomacy. Despite prolonged American sanctions, Iran surprisingly maintains a massive stream of lucrative oil export revenue. Tehran directly receives immense economic support from Beijing through highly sophisticated sanction evasion financial networks. Recent intelligence analysis confirms that nearly all Iranian oil exports currently flow directly into China. This massive volume represents a radical shift compared to the relatively low figures seen previously.
The robust financial lifeline successfully nourishes both the state apparatus and the Iranian military machine.
Beijing and Tehran have jointly built a highly complex maritime transportation and underground financial system.
A massive shadow fleet of tankers regularly deactivates navigation systems to hide their actual locations. These mysterious vessels constantly change names and conduct risky ship-to-ship transfers offshore daily.
The illicit oil trade relies heavily on fake front companies secretly established in Hong Kong. Underground financial transactions flow quietly through small regional banks lacking heavy international regulatory compliance oversight. They even utilize primitive barter exchange methods to completely avoid leaving any traceable financial footprints.
This vast smuggling network has successfully transported hundreds of millions of heavily sanctioned oil barrels.
This massive operational scale proves that we are witnessing a highly organized underground economic system. The powerful strategic motivations of Beijing extend far beyond merely fulfilling domestic energy consumption needs. Iranian crude oil is deliberately sold at extremely deep discounts due to crippling international sanctions. This underground trade brings direct economic benefits while maintaining Iran as a crucial strategic partner. Supporting Tehran ultimately helps China rapidly expand its geopolitical influence across the critical Middle East. Furthermore, this secret alliance allows Beijing to directly challenge the effectiveness of American economic sanctions. Intelligence reports also reveal that China secretly supplies numerous dual-use technologies directly to Iran.
These vital components include advanced microchips, navigation systems, and essential parts for lethal attack drones.
This alarming development means the military capabilities of Tehran are being systematically strengthened and upgraded. Meanwhile, Moscow has actively joined this expanding underground military and economic supply chain network recently. We are witnessing the rapid formation of a broad cooperative axis countering the United States. This underground network fundamentally weakens the core foreign policy tools heavily utilized by Washington currently.
Continuous funding ultimately extends the terrifying ability of Iran to sustain prolonged regional military conflicts.
A completely alternative economic and military network is flourishing outside traditional Western regulatory financial frameworks.
This perfectly explains why Tehran can aggressively increase its aggressive presence in regional conflict zones.
Controlling the secret flow of energy, finance, and technology ultimately determines the new global order. Washington now faces an entire coordinated system actively seeking to overthrow the established international rules. A fierce debate has erupted globally following the sudden announcement of the temporary ceasefire agreement. Many international political analysts mistakenly argued that Tehran had successfully gained the upper hand initially. However, deeper strategic evaluations reveal a completely different reality unfolding across the Middle East chessboard. This temporary halt represents a highly calculated tactical maneuver orchestrated by President Donald Trump recently. Washington aims to firmly reestablish its dominant strategic initiative across the entire volatile conflict region. The illusion of an Iranian victory stemmed from their initial aggressive negotiation demands presented earlier. Tehran aggressively demanded absolute control over the Strait of Hormuz, alongside immediate economic sanction removals. Expert military strategists carefully note these demands were merely opening gambits for complex diplomatic negotiations.
The actual reality on the fierce battlefield demonstrates a completely different and highly revealing narrative.
Facing overwhelming American military pressure, Tehran was forced to reopen the critical Strait of Hormuz.
Previously, Iranian armed forces had actively weaponized this exact waterway to extort the international community.
Reopening this vital maritime route under direct American military coercion constitutes a massive strategic concession. Instead of holding its most powerful strategic card, Iran surrendered its primary geopolitical leverage point. This crucial surrender clearly indicates that the immense pressure campaign heavily favors the United States. Conversely, Washington enters this temporary ceasefire period holding numerous crucial military and strategic tactical advantages. According to official government statements, the United States military successfully achieved its primary tactical objectives.
American precision strikes effectively degraded dangerous nuclear facilities and crippled vital Iranian energy infrastructure networks.
These devastating attacks also severely disrupted the central command and control systems of the adversary.
This massive military success creates an incredibly strong foundation for upcoming aggressive international diplomatic negotiations. The current ceasefire provides Washington with valuable strategic space to stabilize global energy market fluctuations. It also allows the United States to maintain overwhelming military pressure without risking immediate escalation. Washington can now force Tehran to confront core conditions necessary for long-term regional stability. These non-negotiable demands include permanently ending dangerous uranium enrichment and heavily restricting deadly missile programs. Furthermore, Iran must completely sever its deep financial ties with dangerous regional proxy militia networks. These strict conditions represent absolute red lines that Washington has never compromised on or altered. We must also carefully examine the complex geopolitical roles of both Beijing and Moscow currently. Some analysts argue that Beijing heavily benefits from the chaotic situation unfolding across the region. However, keeping the Strait of Hormuz open ultimately stabilizes the global energy market for everyone. Every major global economy heavily depends on this crucial and uninterrupted energy flow. This universal dependence prevents any single nation from monopolizing the immense benefits of this crisis. The strategic vision of President Donald Trump reflects a highly familiar yet incredibly effective model.
Washington consistently applies maximum pressure to successfully achieve its most critical regional military objectives.
The administration then strategically shifts towards intensive diplomatic negotiations from a position of absolute strength. This tactical approach effectively secures vital strategic results without sparking a devastatingly prolonged regional war.
Many previous American administrations unfortunately stumbled into disastrously endless conflicts across the volatile Middle East.
Declaring an ultimate victor at this extremely early stage remains completely premature and highly speculative. However, the undeniable core facts reveal that Tehran surrendered on its most critical strategic leverage.
The United States firmly retains overwhelming military dominance and massive economic leverage over the region.
The newly established international diplomatic negotiation process has only just begun to slowly unfold recently. Therefore, we should view these unfolding events as a massive, fundamental shift in geopolitical strategy. The president is actively attempting to drastically rewrite the complex operational rules of engagement. He wants to firmly establish a completely new paradigm before entering the final, decisive phase. The upcoming tense weeks will undoubtedly serve as the ultimate reality test for all nations. We must carefully observe whether this momentary ceasefire represents just a fleeting, temporary tactical pause. Alternatively, it might boldly signal the promising beginning of a comprehensive regional power balance restructuring.
The global community anxiously watches as Washington and Tehran navigate this extremely dangerous geopolitical minefield.
Any sudden aggressive military miscalculation could instantly ignite a terrifyingly uncontrollable global economic catastrophe tomorrow.
International energy markets remain highly sensitive to every subtle political shift emerging from the region. The United Nations urgently and desperately needs to rapidly reform its paralyzed dispute resolution mechanisms. A divided Security Council ultimately endangers the fundamental stability and security of the entire planet. Only robust multilateral cooperation can successfully prevent the total collapse of the modern maritime order. Washington clearly intends to heavily prioritize direct unilateral defensive action if international cooperation completely fails.
Tehran must carefully calculate its next strategic move against the overwhelmingly superior American military forces.
Beijing and Moscow will undoubtedly continue exploiting regional chaos to aggressively advance their geopolitical agendas.
The Middle East fundamentally remains the most unpredictable and highly volatile strategic chessboard on Earth.
We promise to continuously track these rapidly developing military events with absolute precision and accuracy. Thank you immensely for watching our comprehensive daily global news coverage here on our channel. If you found this strategic analysis valuable, please immediately hit that like button down below. Remember to quickly subscribe to Geopolitical Ground to never miss our future critical intelligence updates. We will gladly see you again during our next extremely important global geopolitical news broadcast.